The Undercountry Music News is an excerpt of the weekly internet broadcast Undercountry Music, which features music from great country artists you won't hear on mainstream radio, as well as a roundup of the most interesting country music news of the week without all the fluff. This program you're listening to right now contains only the news portion of the show. To listen and subscribe to the full weekly episode containing the music and interviews, please visit undercountry.com or simply subscribe to the Undercountry Music Podcast on iTunes. This week's co-host is Bill Lord of Nash Vegas Media. Let's get into it. Well, awesome. Well, you know what? I think we're getting to the point of our show where it's time to get into the
Undercountry Music News.
Bill, have you ever listened to this show before? I already know the answer to that.
I haven't. You sent me a link, but I just haven't had a chance. But I do want to listen to it. It sounds cool.
Well, no, I the reason I knew you didn't listen to it is because if you did, there's no way you'd come over here to do the show with me.
Oh, sure I would have, yeah. If I had have, though, I would have known that there were 4 newses in
No, that's okay. And the reason is because the Undercountry Music News is something I do every single week here. And what I do is I type the search term Country Music News into Google, and whatever shows up on the front page of Google, whatever websites show up, I go down them in order. And, you know, when I started doing this a little over a year ago, I noticed one thing, and I go onto these websites, and that on their news pages, they almost never have any news. It's mostly press releases and BS like, you know, Taylor Swift's favorite dental floss or something like that.
Right.
You know, or, you know, things like that. But so what I do instead is I go to each of these, I try to find the 1 or 2 actual news stories every single week, and I compile them all together from the different ones, and I try to then bring forth the actual week in country music news to the listeners of Undercountry Music.
Wonderful.
And there is a part and that I normally do, but we're not going to do it this week. And the reason is normally whenever I get to one of these sites and they don't have any news, period, nothing that I can report, I reward one horrible website with the Undercountry Music News Wet Belch of the Week, where I belch on the show. But this week, you lucked out because I found something worth bringing to the listeners on every single place I went to.
Okay.
So therefore, I don't have a gimmick this week.
Good.
Well, except for one thing. You see that we have a bowl of pork.
I do see that.
Pork rinds. So I was thinking that perhaps we could do the very first story with a pork rind in our cheeks.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Starting over at GAC, the Country Music Hall of Fame announces it will be inducting Ronnie Milsap this year, and his bronze plaque will be added into the legendary rotunda. Now, Bill, you tell me, how the hell was Ronnie Milsap not already in the Country Music Hall of Fame?
Ronnie wonders that himself, and as a matter of fact, one of the things he said last week was just how hard it was to get in the Country Music Hall of Fame, and he'd been nominated several times before, but just finally inducted. But, you know, last year, my good friend Cowboy Jack Clement was inducted in the Country Music Hall of Fame, and of course it was done posthumously because he had died a few months earlier. And he's one of the icons of all music Nashville, period. Bar none. He wrote 17 number 1 songs. He produced endless tracks on folks that you can't even imagine the amount of influence he had on country music Nashville. And it took him till he was gone before he got in the Country Music Hall of Fame. So that's why. It's tough.
I apparently so. Now, also over at GAC, this week they have Krystal Keith in the kitchen, back with her recipe for Italian meatloaf with creamy tomato sauce. And you should see the pictures of this meatloaf being made. I mean, that's totally not news, but it sure looks delicious.
So you're looking at the meatloaf, looking at Krystal.
I don't know. Well, I mean, okay, she's a heck of a good. Okay, over at CMT, where you get your news feed from, Bill.
Yep.
Barry Gibb of the Bee Gees and his wife Linda have sold Johnny and June Carter Cash's former home in Hendersonville, Tennessee, for $2 million. according to the Tennessean, Nashville's daily newspaper. I don't read the newspaper. I've got this thing called the internet, The Gibbs bought the 13,880 square foot home in Old Hickory Lake near Nashville in December of 2005. However, their plan to restore the property ended in 2007 when a preservative compound ignited and destroyed the home.
Right.
This compound that's made to preserve a home. Now you tell me, Bill, if you're looking to preserve something that's priceless,
right?
Do you coat it with a flammable substance?
Well, it doesn't seem like you would. I'm trying to think of what they were putting on there, creosote or something, I suppose, but I can't imagine what they were painting that thing with that went up in flames like that. But it's a shame. It's really a shame. It was a historical monument out there in Hendersonville.
Okay. Well, what the story fails to mention here is how big the insurance payoff from that quote-unquote fire was.
Yeah, and probably it was well needed at the time. Barry hadn't had a hit in a long time, so. I don't know what the residual royalties are on some of that stuff from the Bee Gees, but the money probably came in handy.
You know what? I don't want to throw any accusations out here, so I'm just gonna let that one sort of.
No, we're not accusing Barry of anything. Soak
into the mind there, but. All right, moving along to Country Weekly. Carrie Underwood makes Time Magazine's list of 100 most influential people. Now, the article doesn't state how or why she was chosen. I mean, why would it? That would be called reporting and journalism. And we can't have that, can we?
I don't know. That's something. That story in itself is amazing. That's probably one of the 100 most amazing stories of the year.
That could be, yeah. The issue of Time Magazine has Beyonce on the cover wearing something skanky, while inside there's a picture of Carrie looking 9 kinds of squeaky clean like the Dove Girl or something, all like in white. Yeah. It's like the opposite. It's like Betty and Veronica.
That's probably true. Yeah, Carrie likes to wear that white, though. That's kind of her common thing on stage a lot, too. That little flowing gown kind of deal.
Yeah, I guess so. I've seen her wear some pretty risque stuff, too.
She does. Yeah, even the white thing she wears in concert a lot of times is cut pretty high and pretty low.
I've seen her in some corsets on some award shows. All right, over at Taste of Country, they've got a spotlight on Danielle Bradbery's new song, Young in America. Now, the title actually made me somewhat interested. If a title is, like a Hot Girls in the Country or something stupid like that, I won't even listen to it. But, the title somewhat drew me in, so I went and had a listen to it, hoping it wouldn't be a series of bad cliches. Well, may I recite to you the opening line of the song?
Sure, yeah.
Let's crank up the truck.
Mm-hmm.
Kick up some dust. Mm-hmm. Leave it all behind, just me and you, baby.
Yep. That's country music today, right there. That's exactly right.
All right. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm giving Danielle Bradbery's new song, Young in America, a booger. Here's
a shame, too. She's really a talented kid, too. She's better than that. Too bad.
I know. I'd like to hear something better than that.
Me too.
And here's a bizarre experiment they did over there. Over there at, what were we talking about? Taste of Country. Mm-hmm. They took a 45 RPM record of Dolly Parton's song Jolene, and they slowed it down to 33 speed. Now, kids, ask someone older than 40 for an explanation of what I just said. And when they slowed it down, it sounded exactly like Tracy Chapman. It was freaky.
That's interesting. Yeah.
It sounded like Tracy Chapman. I mean, really, it was bizarre. But anyway, get over there and have a listen for yourself. Oh, we got a triple play from Taste of Country this week. They also have the past year's country music death toll, which is a list of famous country stars who have died in the past year, but their list does not include Ray Price.
Well, somebody really made a mistake then.
I would say.
Yeah.
Unless Ray Price has risen from the dead.
Not that I'm aware of. No, I don't think so.
We don't have the Ray Price zombie roaming the countryside at night?
Haven't seen him on Walking Dead yet or anything like that.
So no Ray Price zombie apocalypse yet?
No.
Okay. All right, over at theboot.com, speaking of merchants, I'm going to take a more serious tone with this one because the story I've got to bring you right now is absolutely no joking or laughing matter. John Brown, one of the two men who shot and killed the legendary Hee Haw star, which is why I'm wearing a Hee Haw shirt today in honor of this story. Star David Stringbean Akeman, he shot him to death along with his wife in 1973. Well, Mr. Brown is up for a parole review this past week. He murdered the famous banjo player Stringbean as he entered his own home after an opry performance, and then the man chased Stringbean's wife down into the front yard as she tried to escape and shot her in the back of the head. Now, one member of the parole board has already flatly voted no on the option of parole for this man, while another member of the parole board, and get this, asked the review to be continued until October while a psychological review is conducted. A psychological review? Are you kidding me?
It's really, I don't know. It's hard to imagine what happens in American justice, isn't it?
I mean, you might be able to make a really far out stretch, that Stringbean showed up through the door unexpectedly, surprised him, and he turned around and shot him, maybe call it second degree. But then to chase his wife down in the front yard while she's trying to get away.
Yeah, the little old lady, small house out in the country out there. Grandpa Jones found them. He's actually the one who showed up on the scene first, Grandpa Jones, over from the Opry. And what a sad day that really was, all because they had heard that String kept cash in his house all the time.
Now that is the one thing about this article that they did not touch on. I was really surprised that they didn't mention anything about the legend of the Stringbean hidden fortune.
Right.
Which actually turned out to be true later. Decades later, they actually found all the money that Stringbean had a habit of keeping large amounts of cash in the front bib of his overalls, the story goes. And he wasn't shy about showing it to people, and he thought it was cute, but it was actually very dangerous, and he got warned about that many times. And the legend has that there was a very large stash of cash somewhere in that house, and that was obviously what drew these men there. And decades later, nobody had found it. But then decades later, I think it was like up in a chimney or something like that. And they found it, but the money had been deteriorated so badly that none of it was negotiable. It was just all little corners and dust. But it was the Stringbean hidden fortune had been found.
Yeah, he came from that era that he didn't like banks. And entertainers, as you know, when they travel, particularly on tour, they always get paid in cash. And it's always been problematic for entertainers who tour, and they still get paid in cash because they have huge sums of cash on hand often. Usually when you book an entertainer, the way that they're booked, they get paid 50% at the time the contract's signed, and the balance of the money when they show up for the date. And but it always has to be in cash. They don't take cashier's checks or anything like that. I'm sure some of that's changed now. It'd be kind of hard to pay somebody $1 million in cash, but...
I would say...
Back in those days, it was a few $1,000s.
But even these days, like mid-level performers will still do that in cash.
These $10,000, $12,000 guys, you have to pay them in cash.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I used to do a little side project with the bass player from the band Wasp, and he would tell me, and that was the way they did it. He'd come in with an armed guard. They'd put the money in a briefcase, and they'd handcuff it to the guy. And the armed guard would go sit in the bus, throughout the show, with the money on him.
That's how it worked. That's how it worked always. Still does.
Okay, moving along to Country Standard Time. They have a link to Black Prarie's new video for "Let It Out," which was all shot in a taxidermy shop. We've really got a death theme going on here, and that was not intentional. Okay. Now, all I can say is that this song is great. The song is great, and I don't say that about many new country songs. I absolutely don't. It's a mix of country, rock, and Zydeco.
That sounds cool, yeah.
Maybe even a little punk, and it's really dark and twisted, and you've got to see this. I mean, easily the best video I've seen this year. I need to send them a note and ask them if I can play this song because I like it so much. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give Black Prairie's Let It Out a solid 8. And the only reason it's not a 10 is because the music arrangement is a little predictable. So, you know, a lot of, you know, I think that was fair. Okay, NashvilleGab.com. About the most interesting thing I found over at Nashville Gab this week was an audio clip of comedian George Lopez calling into the radio show The Barnyard and talking about his hanging and drinking with Merle Haggard, and also about the new upcoming Cheech and Chong movie, along with his personal thoughts about coating a rolling paper with sugar while making a joint.
Yeah, that sounds like Haggard.
He's talking about Cheech and Chong.
Oh, Cheech. Oh, yeah. Well, that's probably par for the course for those guys, right?
He said that they're the only people he's ever met that coat rolling papers with sugar.
Really?
Because it makes it taste sweeter.
Well, Tommy Chong's still pretty wacko. I mean, he's pretty out there, you know. He pops up on things from time to time, and he's still, man, he must still be hitting the bong pretty hard.
Yeah, well, he spent some time in jail
yes, he did.
for for his bongs.
He did indeed.
Over at countrymusicislove.com, Carrie Underwood is one of 3 finalists up for the Milestone Award on the Billboard Music Awards this year. She's up against OneRepublic and Ellie Goulding. Now, the Milestone Award is a special award given to an innovative artist who has achieved a notable chart milestone over the past year. Okay, Bill, I'm going to need your help on this one. I have two questions on this. Okay. How, and not taking anything, Carrie Underwood's an amazing artist, okay?
Sure.
But how is she innovative?
I don't think she is innovative. So I'm not going to be able to help you with that one because to me that she's straight up formula country right now.
Well, that was going to be my second question. How is she country?
Yeah. Well, she's straight up formula country right now. Because country right now is not country. It's not country in the least, as a matter of fact.
I'm here trying to think, and I don't think I can think of one song she's ever released that sounds country to me.
Yeah. You know, I mean, that's just the influence, so unfortunately, of radio and what's going on in country music these days. Now, a lot of these folks I know or have known or particularly knew early on in their careers, and that's really the sad part about them. And you know, an awful lot of them really are country artists, and they should be. And Carrie's one I can tell you, if you turned her loose, she'd sound like Loretta Lynn. She's just, that's the kind of artist she really is. Kelly Pickler, too, a great country singer, but they don't let them do it. They're pushing toward that pop edge, and, you know, it's just in those predictable radio formula songs, everything's just the same, so...
Yeah, I mean, I've got nothing against it. Everybody's got the bills to pay. So
yeah, I dig it. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's not country.
Yeah.
And that's sort of my thing on my radio show on Backstage Nashville. I play a lot of indie music too, and a lot of classic country. So you'll hear a lot of stuff from the 50s, 60s, 70s, in some 80s and early 90s even. You know, I'll play Tracy Bird and some of those guys occasionally. But, man, it's just anything after that is just really hard for me to play. There's some really sharp indie artists in Nashville right now, though, kind of pushing the edge of the envelope that I'm really digging because they're, you know, you can't predict them. They're coming with this really cool stuff that is very country in its foundation.
Now, have you noticed? Now, this has been my what I've sort of been thinking is going on, but I'm not as well in tune to the industry as you are. I've been noticing that a lot of people who are trying to do something more original rather than the mainstream country thing, and a lot of the more country-style artists are sort of taking refuge under the genre of Americana.
Oh, absolutely. And that's kind of been the case since like the late 90s, early 2000s when this kind of transformation began to happen in Nashville. And that's when you saw those guys like Steve Earle and some of Marty Stewart and some of those guys sort of popping up under that Americana heading. And that is exactly the truth. One of my good friends, Jesse Keith Whitley, who is the son of Keith Whitley and Lori Morgan, grandson of George Morgan. He's very straightforward country, but I will tell you, he would not find any airplay on country radio. He's got to go to Americana Radio or the internet to get airplay. Another good friend, Eric Lee Bedingfield, he has busted country radio a little, but man, it's been a tough haul for him.
Now, our last one on the news roll here is the 615, which is a subsection of Billboard. And they have a little blurb about the Marshall Tucker Band being honored on TV, singing contests, American Idol, and also The Voice by the contestants. There's nothing super interesting about the Marshall Tucker Band mentioned in this article except that they're planning 140 shows this year, and they are hard at work putting the finishing touches on a live recording from 1977, which means they're just releasing old catalog instead of anything new, which most classic bands do. Now, Bill, what I want to ask you as the Nash Vegas Insider is that why do all these old classic bands who are still active and really seem to shy away from releasing any new original material? And I guess the second part specific to Marshall Tucker is that I noticed this past year that Marshall Tucker's name has been sort of name dropped in the mainstream songs a whole lot as sort of maybe I'm thinking a way to give the little street cred to the artist. Mm-hmm. But I've noticed a lot of them been dropping Marshall Tucker's name in, and that was a thing there for about 5 minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah. I hadn't thought about it, actually, but now that you say it, it does strike me that way. I do recall hearing them around because I told you I'm from South Georgia. I'm from just below Macon, Georgia, and I cut my music teeth at Capricorn back in the Allman Brothers days, and Skinner and Tucker and Charlie Daniels came up and recorded. A lot of these guys cut there at Capricorn. I was just thinking about that 77 project they probably didn't finish it about the time Capricorn somewhat folded, and because I think they were on there at Capricorn at that time. I don't remember if they were there or on Asylum, but in any event, just in that era when Southern rock sort of fell apart, right? But man, what a great band. You ask why they're not cutting new material? Because there's not any good new material. The writers aren't writing great material. And the bands, these guys probably could come with something, but they're going to stick with that classic sound because that's what they can sell out on the road, right? That's what, when they go play a gig, that's what people expect to hear from them. They want to hear those road songs, those old radio songs from the 70s, and stuff that sounds like them.
Well, there you go. And this has been your Country Music News.
I got that part right. I tell you, I'm not a good study, am I?
Thank you for listening to the Undercountry Music News. The Undercountry Music News is just a small excerpt of the weekly hour-long internet broadcast Undercountry Music, where I, Neil Smith, not only round up the week in country music news and put my own spin on it, but I also play music and have great interviews by lesser-known original country acts, the kind that you won't hear on mainstream country radio. If you're thirsting for that, get on over to undercountry.com where you can listen and subscribe. You can also subscribe via iTunes to Undercountry Music. Thanks so much. Stay under, stay country.